Travel Agent Chatter, Volume 18. Travel Agent Chatter is an audio series produced quarterly by the team here at Host Agency Reviews. I'm Steph Lee, the founder of Host Agency Reviews and your host for today's show. Today, we're sitting down with an agency owner who does things a little bit differently. He shares his most valuable FIT itineraries free on his site. He's used Upwork to find IC advisors to work with his team, and he's launching a new fam trip review site for agents. So tune in to hear how this ex-ad agency agent won a bid for a large corporate client that was previously with a established TMC or travel management company, and find out how he stumbled into booking sabbatical travel. And a quick announcement for all you horror fans out there. We've launched a new project. It's a YouTube series called The Friday 15. So join us every Friday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time on Host Agency Reviews YouTube channel. We'll take 15 minutes of your lunch hour to answer your questions. You can submit your questions and find out more about the Friday 15 at hostagencyreviews.com/Friday15. Now, let's get on to the show. Well, kiddos, it is mid-March, and do you know what that means? It means we made it. 1 year ago, everything shut down, and knock on wood, and that's if you have any wood left after you started burning all of it in sight because of the apocalypse of the past year. So 1 year ago, our industry ground to a complete halt, and we are all still here. So if you're listening to this, you are a survivor. Yay, we made it. It is great to be here with all of you today, and we have got a fabulous show today. I have an old friend on, and DeJuan Shorter is the owner of the $2 million agency, The Timely Traveler, based out of Chicago, Illinois. He is full of all sorts of inspiring and distinctive ideas that will help you grow your agency. So go ahead, grab a seat, put those feet up, and get ready to get motivated as you hear some of his philosophies and what he's been doing. Just a quick reminder before we get started that you can, you can watch, you can listen, or you can read this episode. We put it in all sorts of different formats. And you can also find the show notes by visiting hostagencyreviews.com/TAC and clicking on episode 18. So for today's schedule, we're going to be breaking things down into 5 segments. So the first is beginnings. Next up is Mr. Popularity, unique aspects beyond bookings, and then we'll finish it up with our warm fuzzy segment. So it is time to get this party started. DeJuan, welcome to Travel Agent Chatter.
Hey, Steph, thanks. Thanks for having me on.
We are so glad to have you on the show today. My absolute favorite thing when I worked for a host agency was seeing people starting their agency and having them take off. And you have been one of those success stories. Because we met when we were at the same host agency and
Yes.
you were just starting out. So how long ago was that? I don't even remember.
Yeah, a little over 10 years ago. So I think, August of 2010.
We're like
right
decades.
Yeah.
We can say decades now.
That's true. Yeah, it's been over a decade, believe it or not. But I was just starting off, I think, before you made your transition. But early on.
Well, that's awesome. And now you're an experienced agent with $2 million. This is pre-pandemic, of course. But it's amazing to see, and it's so inspirational. Yay, congrats.
Thank you.
So let's dive into your background, because you and I have similar backgrounds in that we didn't travel a lot growing up. For me personally, we were a family of 4 kids, and I went on an airplane once in 3rd grade. And then the next time I set foot on a plane was when I was 21. And that was when I got hooked on traveling. So tell us a little bit about when the travel bug bit you and how that evolved into a career in travel.
Yeah, good point. I think similar as you mentioned, I know growing up, you travel a little bit around the U.S. and some places here we specialize in a lot of national travel and longer plane rides and exotic trips. Yeah, didn't do a lot of that growing up, to be honest. Really, when I started getting the travel bug, right after college for me, I finally had a working job. My background was in the marketing advertising industry. So I started working in that field and finally a little bit of money in the pocket to kind of make your own decisions what you want to do. I started to take a few trips early on, a lot of places that were easing the budget. So a lot of various places in Central America.
Were you Were you the backpacker?
I won't say quite the backpacker, but
I was
definitely
the backpacker
but
that everybody
definitely,
hates at the airport.
what's that? Definitely making money stretch. So staying at good locations, but not breaking the bank where we were staying. For me, it was always more about the experience, trying to get local, trying to really enjoy culture. So yeah, a lot of when I really dove in, a lot of Central America, Mexico, some other areas that we really started to travel to. One of the first few trips for us was like Honduras, Belize, actually Peru, South America. Peru was a big trip that I went early on, where my wife and I went. And I was trying to think way back, and like, were we fiance, were we husband, wife? But the two of us went on a trip, a bigger trip with a group, and first time in South America. But for me, just was fascinated by the culture, the people, just the change of scenery. And actually, it was a bigger group trip that we were on. And what even got me in thinking more about even starting on travel agency, that group, we were 10 of us or so on the trip. And there was a lot of issues with flights. Other people needed help calling the airlines, issues with hotels, and some various things that we didn't plan. Obviously, I was an agent at that point. We were along the trip. My wife and I were really helping people navigate the tense situations. And we got back from the trip. I was like, you know what? Everyone else was pretty tensed up about that and stressful. But I'm like, actually, we didn't mind helping everybody out. So for me, I was like, okay, one day I can make this into how do I make that into a career? That experience that I had, helping people resolve issues and taking the work off their plate on that trip. Again, we weren't a travel, nowhere near a travel agency at that point. Just two of us, just helping out some friends and colleagues. But for me, that was one of the initial times where I was like, okay, one, the experience I had just traveling, loved it. But then two, on the business side of it, helping people navigate, I started to fall in love with that part of the business. So yeah, that was early, I guess, travel bug, if you say.
That's cool. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know a lot of people that would be like, yeah, I want to help you wait online with the airlines and figure out the canceled flights and delayed flights. So that's what a travel agent does. That was really cool. So tell us a little bit about where the name The Timely Traveler came from.
Yeah, I think for us, as a business, as a service, for the biggest thing that we preach, and I preach to our ICs as well, is service, right? Being timely. And it goes with that, with the name Timely. I think it's being there for your customers, being there for your clients. No, I won't say 24/7, but when they need you, you need to be there. You're responding back in a timely manner. Someone reaches out to us for a trip or a request. Let's make sure we get back to them same day, within 24 hours, or usually for me, it's within 6 to 8 hours. Let's get back to them right away. With a response, if it's a question, if it's an emergency, let's get back to them right away. But if it's an inquiry or just something more general at the time, let's make sure we're getting back to them in a timely manner. So for me, it's about the service first. Whatever, every client we touch, every prospect, every phone call, let's make sure we're handling it in the right way. So yeah, that's where timely sort of ties into the name.
Yeah. DeJuan was even right before we started recording this, texting you with his client, making sure they were getting their COVID test on their way to Hawaii.
Yes, and that's it, right? Being there for them.
Yes, exactly. Well, you followed a pretty typical path in that you started out part-time. So you kept your job at the ad agency. And then as the business grew, you were able to go full-time at your agency. And I found that advisors that are working both their regular job in addition to starting their agency, like number one, I think it's inspiring that they're able to start an agency while doing full-time work in addition to just life. But that B, the people that do that are straddling two different jobs, they find that their regular job, their full-time job, really gives them a steady source of leads from their coworkers, the clients that heard about them starting their agency. And so you were in the ad world, and my extent of knowledge about the ad world is Mad Men. So lots of hobnobbing, going out, wining and dining, tons of networking, lots of smoking. Is that still the case? Like, how did that play out for you in terms of leads?
Yeah, I think that's a good point you brought up. I think Mad Menish at times, to be honest, yes. I mean, we enjoyed ourselves.
I'm envisioning you just like smoking, got your, I don't know, vodka on the rock. I don't even know what you
I was probably more on the not on the smoking side, not on the smoking side, but maybe enjoyed an adult beverage or two. Anyway, but what you're getting at, it's a very social. That's a very social industry, and yeah, for me, it was. You're right. A lot of the leads were initially, I think, any agent that starts off, a lot of leads are family and friends first.
Mhm.
So for me, same way, especially doing part time, a lot of friends and family initially, and then colleagues through work. And a lot of that was social, being out at events. Someone come back from a trip that we booked, and you're at a bar, a restaurant, a team dinner, and someone mentioned just got back from Kenya. Oh, DeJuan actually helped book that trip for us, and then obviously it would start to spread that way. So a lot of our business was initially from the industry, just social, people being out. A very social industry. So if you're doing it right, if things go well for you, if we weren't doing a great job, the business could end that quickly too. Unfortunately, we were putting together some great trips for a lot of colleagues and just folks I knew in the industry. And then it started to just spread out through that industry. So yeah, a lot of our initial clients were through colleagues and friends through the advertising industry. And then it really helped get our business started.
Well, speaking of being the ultimate social butterfly, DeJuan, I want to switch topics and chat more on your like online presence on social and your website. So let's jump into the next segment, which I've named, and I'm sure you love this, Mr. Popularity.
I heard it already. I heard it. I was like, that
I
must
know.
be,
I
I
bet
know
you're
it's
like,
coming.
oh God, Steph, what is she doing? Okay, so the thing I've come to understand since we've been talking more in depth about your business is that you're super understated and very modest about your business. Has anyone ever told you that?
No.
No. Okay. Well, let me give you an example. So before every interview, like I spend hours poking around on the interwebs and seeing what like my latest victim has been up to. So I check the website, I check out the social media profiles, I look at the posts from clients. So I'm stalking DeJuan online and I see that he's mainly active on Facebook and Instagram. He's got about 2,000 followers on each, which is impressive. Yeah, it's super impressive. And then I look at the posts and man alive, like the first post has 60 something likes. And I scroll down, I think, well, maybe that was an anomaly. And then the next one has 30 and the next one has 60. And then I go over to Instagram and I'm like, does his magic work over here? And then it worked even better. He's got like what had 60 posts or 60 likes on Facebook had nearly 200 on Instagram. And so after that, I was like, I'm feeling really bad about like our social stats. Like we have triple the number of followers and we get 3 likes. But then what's great about you is like when I asked you about it, and I'm asking you about your social during a call, you're super chill and you're like, oh yeah, I spent some time writing those posts. And I'm like, well, we spent some time writing our social too, DeJuan. And so what I'd like is, can you share with us some of the things that you do on social? What's your process? Because your audience is so engaged. What are you doing? What's your thought process?
Yeah, for me, it's some of it's similar. I'm sure there agents. I mean, trying to stay out there pretty active daily, if not a couple of times a day, just with general posts. But I think for me, I think I mentioned to you too, being engaged in various groups, so various travel groups, travel segments that I'm part of, even like various Facebook groups. So even if it's a group about people who are looking for travel tips in Kenya, it might be a travel agent specific group, just maybe a general travel. You're a fan of travel, right? So you're in these groups. I still try to comment and interact. Obviously, I'm not saying I'm an agent, but I think you start to become a voice or speak more in some of those groups. They're more consumer facing groups. People are going to look and see, okay, guys, the 5th time he's responded to something about Kenya. Okay, look, he owns the Tommy Traveler. Let me follow the Tommy Traveler now. So I think trying to be involved in areas where travelers are, it works for us. Again, I'm not selling in those groups. So the groups are just purely because I'm passionate about a certain travel niche or an area. But I think your expertise starts to carry over, and people are then going to start checking out your profile. What do you do? Where are you? And then, okay, he's a voice of reason in this group. I should follow their social page. So I think we've got a good amount of followers that way. And I think from content, I know we talked about this a little bit too, just try to be a little bit different from the content we post. We don't do a lot of price points. We don't do a lot of sales and things like that. It really is more, let's try to share things that are actually going to help our clients. So I know one thing we talked about, we share a lot of client itineraries that clients have traveled on. I think we've talked about before, where some agents or some professionals choose not to let the head out of the bag first, try to keep some of those special concealed. And when a client reaches out to you, then maybe let them know certain destinations, certain hotels. For us, we put a lot of that out there, and I think it's been successful for us in regards to engagement, and then also to get new leads. I think for us, we'll show them exactly where people stayed, what they did, what tours they took, and that's worked for us. We've seen a lot of new client bookings out of just being open and sharing some of those itineraries and work that we did. It's almost given away for free at that point, but people still to actually book that. I find that people aren't going out and booking on their own. So just more and more content like that. I think that's more of you give something to your client. I try to make sure we post it's something that's going to benefit the client or benefit the Facebook follower, Instagram follower.
So. Yeah, well, you do a lot of pictures of your travelers' travel. Do you ask them for pictures, or do they send them automatically?
Yeah, we have on our form before when they initially fill out the form, we get all the travel details. Prior to the trip, one thing we ask is, are you okay with us sharing your social media picture? So what we'll try to do, literally, if they say yes, I'll go follow them on Instagram or Facebook. That way they usually follow us right back. A lot of times they're already following us, but not every client thinks to go follow you. So we'll follow them before the trip. Then once they click yes, okay, we're okay with you sharing our photos, then obviously we'll grab some off Instagram or Facebook. And then also when they come home, we also ask, hey, do you mind sharing a handful of pictures from your trip in our follow-up feedback form? And usually everyone sends over a couple pictures for us to use too there. So on the front end we ask, and then on the back end we ask again for it. I think out of one of those 2 times we were able to capture some good pictures and images and videos of their travels.
Yeah, that's super smart, like asking beforehand too and following them, because part of the problem is people are so busy. They, of course, want to send pictures and help out in these things, but they're just coming back from vacation. Yeah, so that's really, I love that idea.
Yeah, we'll do that and grab a screenshot while you're traveling. Grab a screenshot. Hey, are you okay with us posting this? The biggest thing for us too is privacy. When people are traveling, sometimes people don't want the world to know that you're out of the country, out of town, out of traveling somewhere. Yeah. So that's why we ask it up front. I love posting while they're traveling and tagging the hotel, tagging the resort, tagging the tour company, who they're with. Because then right away too, we find that if you're doing, again, a tour in Kenya and staying in a nice resort, we'll tag the resort, then tag the tour company that's going on safari with. They'll then respond back and engage as well, the tour company and the hotel. So it's giving everybody a little bit of credit, a little bit of visibility while they're traveling. So yeah, we try to do that as much as we can.
Yeah, I noticed you're really great at tagging, and I feel like that has something to do with the interactions that you're getting.
Yeah, and it's good because a lot of times too, and again, before we move on, you asked me too about gaining followers. A lot of times the resorts, the tours, they'll then share what we tag them in. So when they share that, it's tagging the Timely Traveler back. So they have 10,000 followers for the resort. They're sharing a picture from the Timely Traveler. They'll then see the Timely Traveler link on there, and a handful of people will then start to like us from that as well. So that's goes full circle with that.
Yeah, super smart. Yeah, because you're really like doing 2 things. You're building up your following, and you're also getting great engagement because you're bringing in all sorts of other parties into the post.
Exactly.
Yeah. So tell us with these, you named a few places, but what are the Facebook groups that you're hanging out in that you found have been really helpful for your business, the consumer-facing ones?
Yeah, there's quite a bit. I think we've really branched out to the kind of areas that we cover. So to me, to be honest, there's a ton of groups. Travelers interested in Key West, travelers interested in Florida. Again, these aren't the specific names. Right now, there's so many groups on Facebook travel. There's one called All Things Kauai, All Things Maui, a ton of them. So for us, being involved in all the destinations that we serve for our clients, obviously there's travel agent specific ones. We're not getting followers from there. It's more going to these consumer, it's not consumer, but just the general public and just being engaged in there. So like I said, All Things Kauai, All Things Maui, resorts of Key West, whatever it might be, just being involved in these special kind of Facebook groups. That's going to help us get some traction from travel. And every once in a while, someone's like, hey, I need a travel agent. And guess what? You're then there to, if someone does solicit it, you're there to help.
Yeah.
We won't mention it unless someone does say, hey, can a travel agent, anybody know a travel agent can help plan this trip? And then we're there to help. Once you put your name out there, you usually get a ton of leads as well from that group. So yeah, that's the way we interact. That's the one way we interact with and really grow our leads and grow our presence.
And I feel like I remember you saying you also follow and interact with a bunch of travel related profiles like Nat Geo and the tourism boards.
Yeah, certainly. I think tourism boards for sure, just interacting, commenting. I think same with like publications, Nat Geo, Travel Leisure. I guess anyone those are kind of niche to what you're offering there, are that are, bigger travel companies. But I think still the people that are following Nat Geo or Travel and Leisure, they're obviously travel enthusiasts, people who like to travel. As long as you're interacting and engaging, you're still reaching those same type of consumers that you would actually hope to attract to your business. So yeah, the same idea there. Whether it's Instagram page, Facebook, even LinkedIn, some other areas, sometimes to venture over to. I think just trying to find those like-minded audiences who you're really trying to attract.
Yeah. Well, one thing's for certain, and that is that you have a great following on social. And it's not just the post interactions. You have, I think, 50 plus glowing Facebook reviews. You've got maybe 20-ish on Google, and you've got a handful on Travel Leader's agent site. So walk us through, because I know this is a challenge for a lot of advisors, is getting the travelers to review the agency afterwards.
Yeah.
So walk us through your process for getting reviews.
Yeah, you know what? I think for us, it is, I'm sure most agents do some sort of welcome home, welcome back. For us, it's initially where I ask it for the review. It's as they're getting back home. Hey, first of all, I want to see if there are any issues, major concerns. I know we checked in a few times during your trip, but first of all, anything that we need to address right away? Usually I know the answer is no, but it's a kind of a soft way to at least lead into what I'm going to ask for. Then after that, honestly, a couple check-ins. We have a form that we ask them to fill out for reviews, and then we'll also send a link. So that's more reviews like, so we do some write-ups in our newsletter. What were 3 of your favorite places that you ate? What was the most amazing thing about the trip? So we do a form that has 3 or 4 questions, and I just repurpose that for our blog and our newsletter and some other stuff. But then also the last thing I'll include is a link to our Google and Facebook, and sometimes Travel Leaders we'll put in there as well. But basically put a link in for the reviews, right? Again, know your slam, but would you really help with our business? I know you had a great experience with us. The best thing you help us do is leave a positive review. So we'll ask you once. I usually do one more follow-up, to be honest, and then that's it. There's not a ton of, wish I had a secret recipe to say that works, but I think just having that follow-up email really timely while they're just still enthused about the trip they got home from, I think is right. Capturing them at that moment. I think you wait for a week, you wait for 3 or 4 days. They probably haven't lost their magic yet, but it may not still be as fresh. For me, it's trying to get them right when they're getting back, maybe that first day home, asking for, and then again, a follow-up about a week later, they don't respond to that. And it seemed to have worked pretty well for people leaving reviews. So yeah, that's been our strategy.
Yeah, I feel like, because people usually send out those, I'm guessing what it is with you is it seems like you're really in close contact with your travelers throughout the booking process, texting and emailing and checking in throughout the year. So you have built these really strong relationships, and maybe that's coming into play too.
And I think you're right. The touch points, it's that pre-travel, being there for them during travel. Maybe one checkup. I don't want to bother them on the trip, but hey, we're thinking about you. What do you need? Usually we do something small while they're traveling. So whether it's a birthday or maybe celebration, we may do something a little bit bigger, but if it's just a trip or maybe the first time traveling with us, always make sure we have something in the room waiting for them. Thank you, this and that. And then I think, when they come home, we've talked to them a lot of times and we've been there for them the whole time. So in my mind, it's almost like, okay, I don't mind leaving them a review. They've actually gone above and beyond to make sure I had a great trip. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Travel Leaders site that features their agent profile. So when I was checking out your profile, it's flushed with like pictures and testimonials and your travels. It's a lot more filled out than some of the other profiles I've seen. Does that mean that you're getting leads from it? What's your experience been with kind of the agent profiler system?
Yeah, it's been good for us. I think to your point, initially we didn't have a lot of filled out, bare bones, a couple of places that we've traveled, and then more and more. Travel Leaders is great, and travel pushing the importance of having your files updated, and that we finally went in and took their advice and really went in there and beefed up our profiles. And yeah, it's worked. You see, obviously COVID's a whole different situation. Even during COVID, we've had a few great leads come through here for trips. So yeah, for us, it's been good. For us specifically, a lot of Kenya travel, I think I mentioned to you, a lot of Africa travels come through Travel Leaders, through the profile. Belize, Cayman Islands, some other areas that popped really well for us. So yeah, honestly, we need to add a lot more to it. Even still, there's a lot more destinations and specialties that we haven't fully fleshed out. But I think we've done a good job with some destinations. We're seeing leads come in and legit leads that are booking and refers to other people. So it's been a good source of leads for us.
Yeah, that's fantastic to hear, because sometimes I feel like it's hot or cold. Like for some advisors, they say it doesn't work for them, but it's great to hear your story. And so people know that it does work and that you've gotten some really big ticket bookings from that.
Yeah, we have. It'll heat up at times in a few months. I'm like, okay, maybe we need to go for refresher. But yeah, it gets us looking at over a year. It gets us a decent amount of bookings, and again, some of the higher ticket bookings when you're talking about luxury safaris in Kenya, really, really nice resorts in Caymans or villa rentals and things like that, multi-generational family trips. So some big trips come out of the profile. So.
Yeah, that's super cool. Well, I also want to mention and let everyone know that on your website, you do a great job with listing your client testimonials. So instead of, because oftentimes what I see is there's a testimonial page and it'll list all of the testimonials, but you do it a little differently so that you have the types of travel you book. So like corporate or family. And on that page below it, after you explain what you do, there's the testimonials from that specific subset of clients. The corporate clients are seeing corporate client testimonials, and the family
Right.
travel, they read up on what other families have been doing. So was there a thought process behind that?
I think the thought was, if you're a family traveler, how can we make it easier for someone to go read about 3 or 4 family reviews? DeJuan took care of the kids. They had whatever it might be. They made sure there's enough room for the crib and things like that. I think you want to hear about, let's find another family to travel with them versus searching for, if I'm an adventure traveler, I probably don't care so much about reading about family travel testimonials. So let's just make it easier, segment out. Also, we put some testimonials as well in the itinerary. For example, I had a gentleman reach out to me on Monday, actually yesterday, in regards to a Korea and Japan trip. And really he found that through an itinerary that we had built from a client that came back. So we wrote it up. We had real images from a client's trip and their thing. At the bottom, we had a testimonial from the client in that itinerary too. So I was like, how'd you find us? He's like, actually, somehow I was Googling South Korea and Japan, and your blog popped up. I read it, saw the pictures, and it looked like these people were having a good time. And then there was a testimonial right at the bottom as well. So I was like, okay, real life people. I read about their experience. Okay, let me give you a call. So I think also those testimonials and the mix with real itinerary that people have actually gone on and pictures, it helps from a new prospective client. It helps bring their guard down right away. Okay, here's real people. Here's a real itinerary. Here's a testimonial.
Yeah.
And then I'll go to the Facebook page and wherever else, and here's a couple good reviews. Okay, I'm ready to work with them. That's kind of purpose there. Those testimonials, and then just like as much real imagery and trip examples that we can put on the website to show people that we kind of how we operate and how we do business. So
yeah, you do a great job with social proof and making it so people feel really comfortable when they're stalking you online. Like when I was stalking you, DeJuan, yeah, I felt very comfortable. Just FYI. You're a great person to stalk. Well, let's see. So I think I have one last question. When I was perusing the site, you had an email newsletter sign up that popped up. And I'm wondering if you can share like how often you send it out and what you put in there.
Yeah. So we have the pop up there, as you mentioned, on the site. I'll collect addresses. But yeah, we send out a monthly. I won't say monthly, actually more of a quarterly now. The idea is to get to monthly. Sometimes it's monthly. We still don't have our schedule as tight as I would like it, but at least try to get out quarterly with clients and sending updates. But yeah, for us, it's just similar train of thought. I think usually our kind of format of the newsletter, the first section of the newsletter usually cover a few things that are more topical, right? So if it's talking about now, obviously COVID, maybe new measures that are in place, such as now things like travel overseas, you need to get testing coming back to the U.S. So I have a few links and some read-ups and just current topics for our users, for our consumers and our clients to read up on. But then two, we'd like to highlight a destination. So for, right now during COVID, specifically highlighting a destination that's available to travel to for most citizens. So I think the last one we had Hawaii in there, and we talked a little bit about the different islands and nuances and what island would make the most sense for you as a traveler. So a little bit about Hawaii, and then it gets more into kind of images of people traveling. We usually do a recap of here's who's traveled this last month, or here's who's traveled over the last quarter. Here's 6 or 8 images, or maybe 10 images of travelers actually enjoying their vacation. Typically, we have a link as well, the itinerary written for that picture. If it's an image of Iceland or Hawaii, or wherever it might be, here's their experience they had in Hawaii and Iceland. So not just the picture. A potential client can go click on that itinerary and view it. And then at the end, also, we do just a wrap up, like here's the trip of the month or the trip of the quarter, and we'll highlight a client's trip. And what I mentioned to you earlier about we do a form where we ask a few questions about a client's
Oh,
trip.
yeah.
Usually we'll
Mhm.
repurpose at the bottom. So it's almost a copy and paste at that point. Here were 3 must-eat restaurants. Here were 2 tours they absolutely loved. Here's their favorite hotel from the trip. And then maybe just like a little bit of a testimonial at the bottom. DeJuan and team put together an amazing trip for us, or whatever it might be. So still try to capture that same theme that we have on the website, really just showing people out there traveling and experiences that our clients are having. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. And then again, I think ideally we'd get it out monthly. It's more of a quarterly basis. Every once in a while we may do 2 months in a quarter. We still have yet to do 3 months straight. So
It's tough.
we'll get there. I know we'll get there. We'll get there.
But
So
I like that you do it quarterly, because sometimes if you don't have something to say, like for us, we do our monthly newsletter, but so many people do multiple times a week, like the bigger organizations, or they'll do it every week. And we were like, that's just too much. We don't have that much to say. And it like lowers our open rates.
yeah, certainly. Yeah, agree. To push it out. After a while, it'll become toned up, right? No, open rates will drop. So if it's once a quarter,
Yeah.
people are looking forward to it and to hit their inbox and give them some inspiration to travel. So
Yeah. What's your open rates like?
so we're at, I think I mentioned you last, and I knew you were going to ask that again, and I got to go back and look at it again. I think we're in the 30s stuff. I can't remember. I know we looked at it even last time, but I think we're in the 30s, mid 30s.
Yeah, I
For
think you're like
open rate.
mid 30s, 40s. So
Yeah,
mid
yeah.
30, 40.
I think we hit 40 a few times too. Yeah, so mid 30s to 40. I think we're coming in at. So again, I think when we do it more than that quarter, even what you alluded to earlier, we do see the rates drop off. And every once in a while, we'll send out a kind of a random just one off. Here's not really a promotion, but here's a destination. Here's something that happened, and I'll see those newsletters don't do as well as the quarterly ones that have a little bit more bulk to them, a little bit more information in them. So yeah,
Hmm.
I think for us, the quarterly is probably the sweet spot for us. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, 35 to 40% is an amazing open rate. So you're again putting me to shame. I've got a little bit to go to get up to 35 to
That was the
40%.
last few. I won't say everyone's like that. That we've had some that haven't been near that. I'm going off the last couple that I can speak highly about.
Well, while we're on the subject of emails, I know I said that was my last question on that, but I know you're a big believer in maintaining relationships through checking in with friends and clients. So can you expand a little more on how you do quick emails throughout the year, how those have helped you grow your agency?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, for us, obviously, I mentioned the newsletter we send out, but yeah, for us also important to get a little bit more personal with the email too. I love having our team, and we'll do some outreach. Really, we'll go through our CRM, our database, our CRM, right, grab our email list, and really start to reach out to all of our clients. We'll try to go through everyone through the list, but we'll do something like, hey, in January, or use it in a year. Hey, it's been a year. It's been 6 months since you went to X, Y, and Z. We're just thinking about you. We're here if you need anything, and really enjoyed working with you on that last trip. So we'll send out those kind of emails, those kind of touches. And to be honest, those open rate response rates are, after we're not tracking them as we would a newsletter, but the responses are great. We truly do care about the customers, the clients. If someone had a baby, we know in the last year, or something different happens in their life that we're, a lot of clients we're friends with on Facebook now, through booking their travels, we'll comment on that as well and just really show we do care about them, right, as the clients. Sometimes people are just like, hey, thanks for checking in. We'll talk to you when we're ready. And then, there's a lot of times where it's like, hey, actually, I'm glad you reached out. I've been meaning to talk to you about a trip to, Paris we're thinking about in 2022. So we set some time up to talk. So those kind of touches, maybe 2 to 3 times a year. Also along with our newsletters and a few other communication pieces. But the direct emails, taking your time, it takes a lot of time to write a personal letter to each person. It's worked well for our business. I think our clients really appreciate it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a good way to, when you're like, you know what, okay, I've tried, social media is not working for me. Instagram, Facebook, I'm not getting,
Okay, you know what? You're doing really great on Facebook and Instagram, DeJuan.
I know, but those aren't, thank you. And some of those are likes, those are always turn to a
Yeah,
response.
they're not sales. Yep.
Email is an easy way for someone to respond back. Like, gosh, thank you. Here are 5 things I was actually wanting to talk to you about for a trip coming up. So it gives them kind of that platform to really just respond right back to you.
Yeah,
So,
and I suppose too, if you put out the database and you have, I don't know, 300 clients or something, and you just have the list on your desk and do 1 or 2 a week or 1 or 2 a day,
yep.
and it takes a minute to write it up and send it off. that's really effective.
Really effective. You think about the time spent, I mentioned before, not a good point, but a percent, even 15, 20% of those turn into be new leads. And that's time well spent.
Definitely.
And I'm not sure where our percentage is. It's really high, right? But even if it's 10%, you have a list of 500, 600 clients, you get 50 responses back with potential trips coming up. So that's huge, right? So even if, hey, I'm thinking about travel, and it may not have the details yet, but hey, I'm thinking about traveling towards the end of the year. I'll be in touch with you soon. Mark it in your calendar, do a follow-up again with them in March or April to check in with them, see where they are, to get you another potential lead. So,
well, let's move along and jump into the next segment where I want to hear about some of the unique things that you do. So there are two things I noticed right away when I was on your website that I don't often see. The first is those really in-depth itineraries that you had talked about. And the second was the sabbatical travel. So let's start with the in-depth itineraries. We chatted about this. Some FIT advisors and just advisors in general really guard the specific details of an itinerary until the client is closer to booking with them. But you take the opposite approach. So tell us about your thought process on putting out such detailed itineraries.
Yeah, no, I think I hit on some of this earlier, but I think our intent for putting those to just be visible, just be transparent with those trips. For me, it's we're finding that we're getting so many leads that are coming in through that are not even on referral, coming in through social media things that we're pushing out, or either maybe a referral with someone who doesn't really know who we are. When they first start, as you did, it helps legitimize us. I think just seeing that here's an actual person, here's an actual itinerary. And for me, I'm pretty confident that the trip that we put together, again, someone wants to try to replicate that, they can try to go do it, right? To do at the level that we do, with the service that we put behind it, I think we put a lot of value there. So I think us knowing about our strength with customer service and being there for the client, they still won't have the same experience if someone just want to book a couple hotels and maybe a random tour or two. So I'm pretty confident in that. And if someone is price hunting or just trying to find out that we're not really in the realm for, we really want to be there to provide you a service, to provide as a business. So we find that, honestly, as I mentioned even earlier, the other day, client came in, found the blog, found the itinerary, and then went through it, saw the testimonial that we had included with it, and he's like, okay, this is an itinerary that I loved. I'm glad you laid everything out. I love the hotel. I love some of the tours. And that was easy work done. Really, he wanted the similar itinerary, except for maybe a couple of tweaks, right? So for me, it's almost repurposing some of that work that we've already done. And we don't put price points on it. We don't put any of that. It's more like, here's day 1, here's day 6, here's day 7. But we don't get specific on dates or pricing. But we get a lot of people who are just like, oh, I want that similar itinerary. Maybe just make one change. So that work that we've done, we're using that to almost make multiple sales just off that same itinerary that we put together. So yeah, it's been good for us. I think it served a couple purposes. I think one, legitimizes for new potential clients. I think two, we find it saves us to do redoing work. We have those itineraries posted, and a lot of times people just want to grab and replicate a similar itinerary. Yeah, I think those are two areas or two trains I thought could help us with those itineraries. So
yeah, and I think too, because when I was looking at them, if I were like, oh, I want to go to South Korea and Japan and was looking at the itinerary, I was like, well, I don't want to work with a travel agent or pay a travel agent or whatever my deal is. If I went to try to book every one of those pieces, I'd be like, this is exhausting because there are so many pieces that you're pulling together. So I think it also in some ways dissuades people from booking on their own because they are so complex and so much time has been put into them.
Yeah, and I think to your point, I think we might have talked about it a little bit briefly before, but I think, when you get to the logistics of a European trip, Asian trip, even Kenya, we start talking about multiple connections and what tour company I use to pick me up from the airport, who's going to get me to this tour, how do I get to the train station? Those are the details. I think once you start to read about all that, you're like, okay, let's work with someone who actually has done this and knows what they're doing there. Help me connect those dots. So I think potentially, they can maybe just go book that on their own. But a lot of these itineraries are pretty detailed, with transfers, pickup, excursions, all that. So we find, to your point, people come to it, okay, just make it easy for me, please. Just what you did for them. We want very similar experience. Maybe tweak a thing or two. But for the most part, we want that. So
yeah, no, exactly. And we're big believers of that philosophy over at Heart. We've had people copy our ideas and the site, but I always feel really secure that while someone can copy our site layout and our content, they can't really copy our personalities and knowledge that kind of come with it. And just a note for those listening, if you are interested in hearing some inspiration from some agencies that also give away the keys to the kingdom, but I have booming businesses because they do that, you can listen to it's the episode 12 with Andres Zuleta, who's of Boutique Japan, and then episode 8 with Madeline Jawar with Italy Beyond the Obvious. Both do an amazing job, and I'll link to those in the show notes, as well as link to one of the pages with DeJuan's itinerary. I'll link to his website. Well, let's move on to this sabbatical travel, because that is something that I don't think I've ever seen an agent say they do on their website. So tell us a little more about sabbatical travel and how in the world you fell into this.
Yeah, good question. Good question. For us, sabbatical travel actually goes tied back to my agency days, working in media advertising. One of the companies that I worked for at a previous employer, when this is still a side business, they offered employees sabbaticals, about a month-long sabbatical, and a month-long, 3 weeks. I can't remember the exact timing, but pretty much a good amount of time off after about 3 years of work. At that point, I had a travel business still kind of on the side, and everyone knew it was transparent with the company. I'm not hiding it. We had a travel company aside. So at that time at the company, a lot of people were going on sabbatical. Hey, can I talk to you about my trip, my travel? So initially, that was how the idea sparked. And then from there, we started doing some research. For me, sabbaticals were heard of. 3 months off, just go travel, do whatever you want. I hadn't heard of other companies, but then I had there has to be other companies out here who do this, right? So we started really researching and looking at other companies that offer this, and there's quite a few. We had a list to go on a spreadsheet going of a list of companies that offer these sabbaticals. And we started just doing some outreach to all these HR departments, different teams, and the whole idea and purpose was, and we're still trying to get there, but we would love to almost be the agency, the travel agency for these employees if they look to take their sabbaticals. Because the sabbaticals are always listed in their perks to working here. You get a month sabbatical for 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So our whole goal is really try to get into some of these companies and be the look. You're getting a sabbatical anyway. Why not mention the time and travel along with that? As you get your sabbatical, if you want to take a trip, then reach out to the timely traveler to help plan that trip for you. So we started to make some headway there. We were planning a lot of sabbaticals for actually a couple companies. We weren't the official. We didn't get on the HR, the website, or that, but we were planning a lot of trips for their employees. Again, these were usually people going 2 to 3 weeks, if not the full month they had off for sabbaticals. So they're bigger ticket trips, fun trips to put together and work with. So it's an angle we're still going after. Things have slowed with COVID, but when things pick back up, I definitely want to get back in there and approach some more companies for that sabbatical sort of travel.
Well, I imagine even if you don't get in officially with the HR departments, which might be difficult, is once you get in with a couple of the travelers, word would spread like wildfire. Since this is something that everybody gets after 5 years, you'll get this continual flow of new leads.
And that's what happened. To your point, someone would get back. We had a lady get back, a couple get back from Australia and Thailand. They post, they talk about it, they get back to work. Where'd you use? How'd you plan that? DeJuan and team planned the trip for me. And then it started to take off. More and more sabbatical travelers would just come to us and want to work with us. Yeah, you're right. Word started to spread that way. Unofficial sabbatical planner with the company, right? So
yeah. Well, so you also got a decent sized corporate client that came to you after they were with a much larger corporate focused travel management company, or TMC. How did you manage to close that deal as a smaller agency that doesn't necessarily focus on corporate, like you were up against a TMC? What changed things?
Yeah, so fortunately, he had an introduction through a friend. This company, I won't mention this on here now, but it listed on the site. The truth, our team's small, but we're pretty nimble. So I think our advantage, our play there was really the larger corporate travel, company they were using before. A lot of forms, a lot of process in place, a lot of really fine particulars as far as you want to reach this during certain times. You got to fill this form out. I remember listening to all their pain points at the time. This was a few years back. Okay, some of those will need to be in place. There needs to be a good process in place to keep track of, because they're doing a large volume of first class or business class travel and hotels and conventions that they do. So they do a lot of travel over a year. So we had to have a process in place. But I think with our team being nimble, really being a smaller boutique staff agency, someone hopping on the phone at 9 o'clock, we're not going to charge you a fee to talk to you at 9 o'clock. What do you need? How can we help you? How can we be of service to you? So our whole thing, really, that customer service.
Sorry, my chair just went down.
I think I know I said something really good there, right, Steph?
Poor
But I
DeJuan.
think that whole customer service, like we really do care about them as a company, as a partner with them. So I think our strengths, flexibility, customization, being there for you when you need you. Again, all these forms and links, you don't have to worry about all that with us. We'll be detailed and organized, just as organized as they were, but we're not going to nickel and dime you over if you want to chat at 9, if you want to talk at 6 in the morning, 7 in the morning. We'll be there for you and your travelers. So really just playing that smaller boutique kind of agency card. And it's truthful. We've been a good partnership with them for a couple of years now. We've been there to service them, and they travel everywhere. They send clients anywhere from they're in India to Mexico to Australia to where you name it. So they do a lot of great international travel and high class business travel. And we're able to handle that. We've done a good job servicing them so far. So yeah.
Yeah, I love hearing the stories of how advisors find these really great corporate clients. It's like a David and Goliath. Like in volume 5, I talked with an advisor who had a very similar story of how she landed a really big corporate account because the previous TMC was just way too rigid for them. So I'll put a link to volume 5 in the show notes if anyone's interested in hearing a David and Goliath story again. Ooh.
And I need to go listen to that one too. And one thing I'll say before you move on, I do remember being in the meeting, the final meeting, going with them with almost a pitch, right? And they were showing me the volume of travel. I'm like, okay, can we actually do all this travel? There comes that moment you're like, okay, I feel confident in our service, but you're like, okay, they really are doing a lot of travel. But yeah, we've done a great job with them. They've been happy with us. But it was your point, is that David? I'm like, they really go with us versus the big guy they're working with. But they made the change. I think they've all been happy for it.
Yay.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been good. It's been good for us.
Well, I saw on your site that you charge a service fee. So I have a couple questions because I'm always curious on the different ways that advisors structure their fees. In our latest survey, fee survey, which I'll link to in the show notes, we had 52% of hosted advisors and 75% of independently accredited advisors charge some type of fee. So first question is, did you start out charging a fee 10 years ago?
So we did not right away. Yeah, we didn't start off right away. We started, I don't want to jump the gun on your questions. We started about 3 to 4 years ago. We started charging fees.
Okay. And then, so it's totally normal. And I think on par with what we see in our surveys is that as someone becomes more experienced, the likelihood to charge fees goes up. And in the surveys that we'll link to, there's some really cool charts showing like through the years, the percentage going up. So the next question on fees is, your fee structure is somewhat unusual in that you charge clients a fee once, but never again. And you also let them know that if they don't like working with you, it's refundable. So walk us through your thinking on that.
Yeah. It's a good question. I think our first thing, we charge first-time travelers. So for us, it is your first time reaching out to us for a trip. We do charge a fee, and it varies depending on if we're talking about a fit Asia trip versus a just all-inclusive to Mexico or somewhere. Obviously, Mexico a little bit lower fee than a larger intensive fit Asia trip. But we charge per adult, so per adult standard fee. For us, it's first-time travelers. I think what that does for us, it helps us. I think what all agents are trying to do, make sure that you're getting I don't want to say verified, but like
a qualified lead.
There you go. Qualified lead. Right. Exactly. Make sure you're not sending it to price match. You're not just sending it to take an itinerary and leave. So for us, that's the purpose of to make sure we're getting like a customer that fits our type of service that we provide. So one-time fee. We tell them that first-time fee, you come back with us, which most clients, we retain the business. They come back and work with us for multiple trips. You're a client for life. We're your partner for life. We'll help you with any of your trips that you need after this. So that's kind of our selling point. Our whole thing is we've done a good job. We're just trying to build clients for life. Yeah. Maybe we could do that still by charging a little bit more every time. I'm sure we'll have some of those, but for us, it's one-time fee, and we'll take care of you for life no matter what happens. So that's how we built our good book of business, I think, and it's worked for us. We do offer the refundable piece. We slide that in. I don't make it so vocal, but it is almost at the end of the page. It's okay. If for some reason you really are not happy with that initial itinerary that we send to you after the initial consultation, we would give you your money back. We were way off base, and we were off budget by the budget is 20,000, we gave you back with a $35,000 plan, then yes, take your itinerary back and do whatever you want to do with it. We haven't had that happen, to be honest, at all. We never had anyone ask for a refund back. I think maybe one time somebody could not travel after we talked and they paid, but that wasn't because of an itinerary, it was just because their plans changed. But other than that, we haven't had that happen where someone's like, you know what, this itinerary was way off mark, I want my money back. So I feel pretty confident that we're going to put together a strong itinerary for them based on our conversation, our consultation. So we do offer it up, knowing that the likelihood of it happening is extremely low of them asking for a refund.
Yeah, I think like what it does is just add like an ease of mind for people that have never worked with an advisor before, that they know it's refundable because you're so confident that you're going to provide what they need that you're not going to be giving the money back. It's not really a risk, and it helps ease their mind.
That's it. I think one thing in private agents are probably listening now. I think during this current pandemic, I know more people are charging fees or fee structured a little bit different. We have worked in some other things on the back end now as far as cancellations and things too close to travel to help at least help protect some of our work during COVID, knowing that a destination could change on a dime right now. Strictly before we find out, and unfortunately just can't get there because of a spike or something that happened somewhere. So we do have some things worked on the back end there, but we still don't charge. We're still not charging any additional fees up front for returning clients or existing clients.
Yeah, and you do like the first call with them. The initial call is free, correct?
Yeah, we'll do the free consultation for the first call. So use an email or a form that'll come through. We'll set up the first initial call, and then after that, we'll send them the form. We use TravelJoy for our tools, so we'll send them the invoice through there before we start doing an itinerary. Once we get the money in hand from them, then we'll start working on itinerary. And from there, they're set essentially from then on to work with us.
Cool. So, yeah, and I'll put a link to TravelJoy if anyone's interested in learning more about that in the show notes. So we'll switch gears a little, but still on some unique things about your agency. So you have a few ICs. How many do you have now?
Yeah, we have about four ICs now. We always range from around 3 to 4, about 4 now.
Okay. Yeah. So you've posted on Upwork to find them, which is a really unique way of finding independent contractors like that are travel agents. So for those of you that haven't used Upwork before, it's an online platform that kind of pairs up freelancers with people looking for ICs, but it's not typically used in the travel space. So I'll link to Upwork in the show notes. But now, DeJuan, I think the idea of hiring an IC from an online platform may sound really scary or maybe like a huge time suck to other advisors. Has it been successful for you?
Yeah, we found great. Yeah, we do some other postings sometimes, but yeah, for the most part, we found some great, fortunately, some great ICs that we love to join our team through Upwork. And it's been, for us, we've had great leads. Like with any source, you get some interviews that just don't work out for whatever reason. Skills don't match, skill set, timing may not match up. But for us, even one of our best ICs, I won't say best, we love them all, right? One who's been with us maybe one of the longest, I should say, is probably the best way to put it. Lady Jane Lancia, who's part of the team, found her Upwork, fortunately, and she's been a great asset to the team along the way. Again, yeah, Upwork found her, great interview, everything obviously worked out for her and then us as well. But yeah, we found her through Upwork, and it's been a way for us to find some great talent, to be honest.
Yeah.
And in Jane's case, she didn't have necessarily travel agency experience. She had a passion for travel. She had worked in some customer service areas. So for us, it's still looking for some of those other, maybe not that you were a travel agent in the past, but looking for some of those skill sets that are going to translate well to be a good travel agent, right? Organization, customer service experience, client-facing sort of positions that you've been in where you've dealt with clients and dealt with people on a day-to-day basis. So those are some things that we look for that I feel translate well over to being a successful travel agent. Right?
So, yeah. So 2 things that pop up in my mind here. The first is that another episode that would be great, a companion one to this, is again volume 12 with Andres Zuleta, who has a complete remote team and what it's like to be working with a remote team. But then my second question is, so you've given us some tips on how you filter through all the applicants to see what kind of transferable skills they have. But I imagine there's a lot of people who think the idea of being a travel agent sounds so dreamy, but they may not want to put in the work. So what's the process like when you've narrowed down your applicants? Then what do you do? How do you interview them and figure out who you're going to bring on to the team?
Yeah, I think at that point, if you get to that final set, it is really talking to them about the kind of day-to-day. I think to your point, the big picture, the beautiful piece. You think about a travel agent going on trips and discounted
Yeah.
trips and traveling the world and seeing new things,
It's
which
like Mad
obviously
Men. You just sit and drink all day.
that's it. Drinking margaritas by the beach and
Yep.
enjoying nice resorts. But it's obviously some of that is included. But I think that final stage is really talking to them about the day-to-day. Like there's gonna be times where you're gonna be helping somebody on a flight at 10 o'clock at night and you're exhausted. But guess what? That's your client. They're stuck in wherever because their flight got canceled. You need to help them get home. So I think it's starting to really show them real world examples. I really try to walk through like an example like that. I talked to them about a few travel insurance examples that I had where people have been hurt or injured, and you're trying to help them find obviously they have the insurance to call, but going above and beyond and help them find a doctor or somewhere close by they can go get help with late at night if they got hurt on their trip. So just little things like that, we try to show them like, look, I'm passionate about it. I love it. That's why we're in it. But there's actually times where you're putting in a lot of hard work, even day to day, doing the research. We'll talk a little bit about the research that comes involved, and you may put together 4 or 5 various itineraries before your client's happy. So it's just really opening their eyes before they sign on that it's a struggle some days, and also the new agent. It's gonna take a little while if you start to build up that's one thing that also is eye-opening to some people at first. Like it's gonna be a little while before a commission starts to come in for you.
Yeah.
One, friend and family maybe book with you first. We send our ICs leads as well as they come through. It's going to be a while before they start to build their business and their own little network as well. So just making sure people are aware of some of those things. I think at that point, you either find people are like, okay, I'm still on. I'm okay if it takes me 4 or 5 months for commission to start to come in and whatever else might be. And you get some people who are like, oh, that's a little bit more than I thought it would be. Actually, I might pass, or I may reach back out to you in the future if that's okay. So I think that's the point where we see people either come with us, or they may decide that, you know what, it is a lot different, a little bit tougher. Not exactly what I thought you guys did day to day as a travel agent, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think the income expectations is really important, setting that up, that the repeat and referrals don't start happening till year 2 and year 3. And so your first year is really slow and money does not come in right away. So
And that's the piece. I think the income part, to your point, that's where I'm always just trying to be transparent with everyone. You may be very social and know a million people, but it's still going to take a while for initially. It will be some of your friends and family who probably will book from you first, and then obviously
Mhm.
to grow. But even that, if someone book with you tomorrow and they're not traveling for 6 months, most suppliers and most partners don't pay until you travel or until you get back. So it's the client gets back. So you're still sitting a while before that money starts to come in. So yeah, I think it's having that income piece is just is probably the most important part to level set potential ICs to join you.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask one quick question before we move into the warm fuzzy segment. And that's you're working on a side project called famtripreviews.com.
Yes.
And yeah, first of all, love the name. We're like twinsy sites. Yay. Secondly, tell us about this like fun sounding site. What is it? Yeah, tell
Yeah.
us about it.
Yeah. So we're in the process. It's come along. The site's up, but we need to flush it out a little bit more before we fully release it. But the whole idea for us in that fam trip space, I think you've even done a few good segments and even been part of your different podcasts I've heard over the time about fam trips have come up between different agents. How do I find them? Where are they? Are they for me? Do I need to be qualified as an agent to go? Do I need to sell a certain amount of a destination, right? So there's so many nuances to fam trips, and each one's a little bit different. I think our whole idea is really to build this site and have it be almost a resource, a guide for you as a travel professional. So I think one, arm you with information about fam trips, basic things. How do I sign up? Where do I find them? Who are travel suppliers and providers who are out there? And we'll touch on that in a second. Who are out there for me to even take a fam trip with? And I think
Yeah.
two, also as a professional, we're trying to arm professionals with almost a tool belt. So the site we created, for example, whole idea is for travel agents to be able to come on and leave reviews on fam trips that they've gone on. So we've created almost a review site where you can just literally go on a fam trip. You can come back and talk about it, create your profile, leave a review in a few different areas and your rating and how you felt about the fam trip, and leave that there for the professionals to be able to read and engage with. But then also two things such as digital site inspection forms that could live on your dashboard, which I know we'll talk to you about a little bit more about that. They could also save reviews from other users that have written on the site and save that to their dashboard. So almost just to make it easy for travel professionals to write, create, and review, have everything in their back pocket for the fam trip reviews, right? So everything you need from a fam trip, going on a fam trip, leaving a review about the trip, would all live within this dashboard.
Yeah, instead of having to dig through emails or find the Word document that you wrote it on, it's all stored
And
in fam trip reviews.
that's it. And our hope would be to get agents, a lot of agents to join it. It'd be a free site for us, for agents to join, but just a social site for fam trips. And then also another element of it would be for agents to leave reviews on fam trip suppliers and providers. Whether it's a sandals, whether it's a, as we talked about, there's a lot of new providers coming out now who are
Well,
providing.
yeah, us about that because
Yeah,
these fam trip providers.
yeah, so we found is I think we've been seeing more and more of, not the big suppliers who also have their fam trips, one from Europe Express to Avanti to Sandos to whatever, right? The bigger players that you traditionally expect a fam trip from, they're still there, of course. But we're also seeing, for example, I've talked to a lady who runs this site, Jamaica Fam Trips, and she's working with, I think she's an agent. Actually, I talked to her a little bit the other day. She's an agent. She decided, you know what, there's not a lot of fam trip offerings for Jamaica. Well, there's some very limited fan trips. A lot of them, some of them are through the tourism board and some are through a few other areas, but there's not a lot that encompass that are available for all agents, from novice, beginners to experienced. So her whole idea was, you know what, I'm going to work with the tourism board, work with some of the resorts directly, and start to build out some fam trips on our own. So she created the site, created the company. I think they just took their first fam trip for agents. I think she had 4 or 5 agents who wanted her first fam trip. But there's more of those. Mexico Fam Trips is another site that's popped up recently. And I know their fam trips are, again, I think a lady or maybe 1 or 2 again. I got to look at all the details specifically on it. But basically, I believe, previous travel agent or still maybe current, but whole idea was to create more fam trips within Mexico and more of a hands-on kind of boutique-ish style fam trip for agents. So there's been more and more of these outside your big players popping up that are providing fam trip experiences for agents. So, and there's some other ones I know as well, some other countries, other destinations as well trying to pop up. So it's a little bit of a different take. We're calling them fam trip providers versus
I love that name.
Right? So it's an interesting space. So I think, you asked for the purpose. I think the whole purpose of that site really started to provide some clarity to the space a little bit more. And then I think too, just provide almost a tool belt for agents to, again, go create one place that fam trips could live, reviews could live. They could save bookmark reviews of other agents. A lot of times we're in these various groups. And I'll see someone say, someone posted a fam trip about this Mexico resort last week, and I can't find it. Whole idea about this would be it would live within that site. You could then bookmark it. It would live in your dashboard. That review would be there for you to reference anytime you needed to. Yeah, trying to really provide that kind of experience for our agents,
And then do you list some fam trip options within the site too? I thought I remembered seeing some.
Yeah. So even for example, right now I talked with the Jamaica fam trips, the lady who runs that. We have a couple of their upcoming fams listed on the site. Croatia, the fam trip coming up, we have that kind of listed there. So the whole idea will be also provide fam trip offerings. I think there are other sites that do offer those fam trip offerings. So for us, that won't be our main focus. But I think we can shine light, especially in some of these boutique, even some of the smaller, I won't say smaller, but just the providers. We can help shine light on some of their offerings that may not be on some of the other sites. Some of these boutique, newer style fam trips that are coming up, help provide some insight and visibility for them too. So
well, congrats on the new site, new project.
Yeah, it's a project. We're almost there, but there's still some fine tuning, but we're excited about it. So
well, we'll put a link in the show notes to both your site as well as the Mexico fam trips and Jamaica fam trips, so people can find those. And with that, it's time to sashay into our last segment. This is our warm fuzzy segment. And who can't use a warm fuzzy after 2020 and the beginning of 2021?
Exactly.
If you haven't heard the spiel for this oddball segment, those of you listening in, it's essentially our way of acknowledging that being a travel agent is really darn tough sometimes. You work long hours and you put up with a lot. And sometimes that can end up wearing you down. The idea behind the warm fuzzy segment is it's a way to remind you that when you're ready to throw in the towel, it's here to remind you exactly why you love this business, that for every stressful moment, there are many memories that are being made. And for every horrible client that you have to work with, there are plenty more clients that appreciate the work that you do. So, DeJuan, can you share with us a cute little story about something a client or a supplier or someone else in the industry did that really made your day brighter?
Yeah, I'll give you an example. For my example, what they did was amazing, was nice. It was more about it's the timing that it happened. So it's early in my career, to your point, where those first couple of years are rough starting off as an agent. Right?
Mm-hmm.
The income was slow, building up clients and referrals and things like that. But we had worked an itinerary for a European trip. Actually, it was France and a couple other countries, but for a 2-week trip for a client. It was an intense itinerary put together, a lot of back and forth, a lot of feedback, a lot of changes. So a lot of work went into it up front. And it was one of those things where you're like, okay, did the client truly appreciate that? Were they happy? Are they satisfied with what we did for them? So client went on the trip. We did our normal check-in. We didn't hear much from them. I'm like, gosh, okay. I haven't heard from them in a few days. Are they having a good trip? Are they not? But you don't want to bother them too much. So I waited to like 2 days before I came home again. One more check-in, just, hey, making sure nothing went on the trip. Are you guys and everything okay? Still nothing. So at that point, I'm like, oh gosh, like what is going on this trip? It was an expensive trip, a luxury trip, and so I'm like, God, are they just upset? So came home, sent our form out that we sent out. We talked about earlier. They were welcome home. How was it? Still no response for a few days, right?
Oh, you're getting the cold shoulder.
Yeah, getting the cold shoulder. So I'm like, gosh, are they even okay at this point? In the mail that next day, so 2 days go past. I'll go to the mail, go in the porch to grab it. Nice big box of chocolates, a thank you card, handwritten from the client. But basically, the whole idea, they put together this nice little bouquet package that was, thanks for all the work you did. We appreciate it. Sorry we didn't respond sooner, but just wanted to send this to you as a handwritten thank you. And then they reached out to me on the same day. So for me, early in the industry, I was like, oh gosh, that's awesome. That's not why you do it, but it's nice to know it's appreciated. What you do.
We all do it for chocolates, DeJuan. That's what drives me in life.
But it was the satisfaction that we put out there for them. The work we put in was appreciated. So early on, I was like, okay, that helps get you back on track as an agent when you're having those down days, right?
Yeah, it's just so thoughtful. Yeah. Heart.
Yeah, exactly. So that's it. Yeah, that was one early on. We've had things happen since then, but early on, that was one of the first few big kind of things that a client had done back, and I'm like, okay, this is awesome. Let's carry on. Let's keep doing this. So
yeah. Well, that is a beautiful way to wrap up another episode of TAC. So, DeJuan, thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing your story.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and you all made my day by tuning in, so thank you for listening in. If you're up for it, join us for a new project we're doing, the Friday 15, and that is every Friday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time on YouTube. I take 15 minutes over your lunch break to go over any questions you've submitted. So you can submit your questions and learn a little bit more about the Friday 15 at hostagencyreviews.com/Friday15. So we will see you cats soon. Until then, be well, stay safe, and eat lots of chocolate chip cookies or boxes of chocolate.
Bye, Seth. Thank you.
Thanks so much, DeJuan. You can watch a video, read a transcript, and view the show notes of today's episode by visiting hostagencyreviews.com/TAC and clicking on episode 18. And because I've been listening to a few podcasts lately that have a credits roll at the end, I couldn't help but feel a little bit jealous and want one for TAC. So here we go. Travel Agent Chatter is a production of Host Agency Reviews. It's developed, created, and written by me, Stephanie Lee. The executive producer is Ryan Gosling. Our associate producer is Neil Armstrong. Fact-checking by Serena Williams. Editorial support by Mary Stein, J.K. Rowling, and Maya Angelou. Our theme song is Chocolate Chip Cookies Are Nummy. Sound design and additional music by BTS and NSYNC. Our consulting producers are Top Secret. Thanks for sticking around for our fake credit roll. We'll see you guys next time.